Welcome back to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld, and I'm very happy to be joined by, I would say, one of my favorite people, one of the people who gives me inspiration and awakening, Larisa Stowe of the Shakti Peace Tribe, right? Is that the name of your music band?
Close, very close. Shakti Tribe. Yeah, Larisa Stowe
The
and Shakti
Shakti
Tribe.
Because I used to see you on the Global Peace Drive. I think that's where that. But I want to talk to you also because we've been talking about your Kundalini awakening because there is a conference coming up about Kundalini awakening. I'll find it on my screen, and I'll post it for people. But Kundalini is, I don't know how to describe it. I think I've had an awakening. It's all levels of awakening. Some people have very drastic awakenings. Oh, here it is. I'll show this conference coming up
Yeah.
here. So, because it's happening tomorrow, this Kundalini series of, I guess, 6 or 7 lectures. And let me just do screen share here. Um, and I think, your story will help inspire people about attending the conference. And it's right here. Do you see that on your screen there?
I do.
There's all this other stuff up there. I don't know why that's there. But anyway, this is a Kundalini conference where all these different people will talk. Let me move this thing. All these different people will talk about their Kundalini waking. My friend Val, who's a good friend of mine, and Anastasia. I've got a lot of these people. Joan of Angels, Kai Shanti, there you are, Larissa Stowe, and Barbara Hand Cloud. She wrote a whole book about astrology and Kundalini awakening. And my friend
Mm.
Soraya Erickson will also be there. So Val, I witnessed having a Kundalini awakening, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But for me, it is an energetic upgrade. But when people have it, I don't think they really know what's happening to them. How do you describe what happened to you in your awakening, and what was your process, if you don't
Mm.
mind describing that? And
Well, interestingly, even before it began, when I was really young, um, in college, that to me is really young now. um, I was told that I would have a Kundalini awakening in this lifetime. Inside out, I was told. And then I was also told that Kundalini awakening is the evolution of the nervous system.
mm,
And recently was given much more inside out teaching about how Kundalini awakening is the second puberty of humanity.
oh, I like that. Because Barbara Hand Cloud will talk about how it comes with your halfway to your Uranus return, like halfway through that cycle, it comes and it seems like a spurt of evolution. But when you were told that you were going to have a Kundalini awakening, did you know what that meant?
You know, that's the fascinating thing is I didn't. And this was before we had the internet. So I went to bookstores to try to find anything on Kundalini awakening. And the only book at the time that I could find was by Gopi Krishna. Um, and his experience, which wasn't all positive. And so I didn't really like that. I was like, this is not what I, okay. There was a lot of warning, in that book about the Kundalini awakening. But there wasn't really much out about it when I had this awareness, this information, inside out information.
Mhm.
Um, and when my Kundalini started to awaken, which
Yeah.
was back in about 2006, I wish I would have like wrote like everything down, like, oh, today is the day, but it didn't happen like that. It was more, I started feeling these these sensations that started to increase and increase. It started with like these feelings in my crown, um, I remember being in the store and standing in line and all of a sudden having this really incredible tingling just in my crown and feeling like maybe there was a problem, even though it felt really good, thinking that maybe I was having some physical issue. Um,
Did, did anything bring that on to start that crown thing going on?
no, that was the thing. I was standing in line in a grocery store, and there were many other things that happened, but this one just, my memory, it stands out so much just because it was so out of the blue, and to be standing in public while I had this expansive experience going on in my brain and my mind, but it was more like a physical. And I, along with it, I just started like feeling this incredible expansion. And so I just got really quiet standing in this line and just felt like I was kind of merging, this feeling of merging with everything. But that wasn't the most intense part of the Kundalini awakening. Honestly, the most intense part is that I started having intense sexual energy at the base of my spine and my sacral. I felt like I was a cat in heat, to be honest with you. I was like, what is happening to me?
So,
And
so
it was ridiculous. I was working to lift it up, because I was
uh,
like, what is happening to me? But I was vibrating. So I'd already had this happening, but now it was like, happening at the base of my spine. And
how old were you when that happened? I'm just curious.
um, I was in, I mean, this was in 2006 when it was really strong. So my 40s or 30s. When was that? When was it? Let's do the math here, Alan.
Curious if it does happen around a
30s?
certain age, according to Barbara Hand Cloud, there is a that's like second puberty thing. So was it a release of sexual energy in a sense that
It didn't feel like a release. It felt like a
oh,
build. It felt like a rocket ship. Um, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I started reading about that, about how do I get this to move up my spine, because I was feeling like this needs to move up.
hmm.
Um,
But not to get personal, did you have a lot of sexual activity to relieve it, or was it just something that you wanted to, yeah, like you say, naturally pull up to the higher chakras?
I didn't have a lot of, at that time, of,
Mm.
I really felt like it was such a spiritual um, awakening on the inside of me that now, mind you, I felt like I wanted to experience that, with another human. But at the time, it felt like I was really supposed to move it up because I knew
Mhm.
it wasn't just normal sexual energy. It was obvious to me that it had to do with this kundalini that was happening, because there were other energies associated. It's like there was expansiveness that was happening in my consciousness as well. Shift
Mm.
in perception, shifts in perception.
Yeah, talk about that part a little bit because that is a big aspect. When the energy rises, you're accessing a greater field of awareness. So, what was your shift in perception?
Well, once the energy did start to really move up, once it got past my sacral chakra and really started to move, then I started to go and experience states of oneness. I would say it's like the realm of Shiva Shakti. In fact, I know it's the realm of it. It is that realm of Shiva Shakti. And I had these experiences of my body literally starting to move in these spirals. But I would say like a spiraling, and not just a normal spiral that we think of, but my body literally started being moved in waves like a kriya. These kriyas were moving through my body, and I was being taken by the Kundalini. And as I was being taken, it was like I was moving into the center of what I would call creation, like just completely moving, and Larisa being more a witness than
Mm.
my personality wasn't really a part of this experience, but more so like witnessing and learning from it. But that wasn't the presiding energy. Like moving into oneness, it's, I would say it's my multidimensional selves that I started coming in contact with that are much more loving than I am. Although I'm
Mm.
getting better at that piece now as Larisa. But when this was happening, I would say that I had a, I was so in these other multidimensional states of consciousness that I identified more with these other aspects of self, so to speak. It's hard to put into words.
No, I get it. I get it because the personality just sort of becomes secondary to the conscious experience. And I'm for me, sometimes I have to remember what my name is, that I even have a name, or that
Yes.
there's a
That's it.
yeah.
That's it. You can almost forget yourself. Like you can go so far into your multidimensionality that it's like I'd have to almost find the thread, which I call like that umbilical cord, so to speak, of love back to Larisa because it was too easy to go into my multidimensionality.
Why couldn't you just go there and stay there for a while? You know?
I could, but it's so ecstatic, Alan.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
so
good.
ecstatic that it's
Yes.
almost
A-
too much for this container. Um,
Oh.
I could only take so much going in for so long because this container isn't big enough to hold that much ecstasy.
But couldn't we, I mean, I don't know, could you expand that container so you can hold that ecstasy? Because aren't we here to hold the ecstasy?
Yes, but it's taken time. This is the piece that I think, people think about, oh my gosh, Kundalini awakening, like it's the end all. And it's not, it's just the beginning.
No, I get what you're
It's like
saying.
the beginning of that.
No, sorry. I was just getting what you were saying about the
It's like
container.
I've had to,
You had to
yeah, because
what?
this
No,
the
finish
human
that.
container. Um, it's like you have to work to integrate the experience of multidimensionality and of going into that the center of creation to experiencing yourself as the Godhead and the center of creation. That is so big that the personality and these bodies, are not equipped to be able to sustain that without integrating the experience with love, um,
Mm,
like deeper, deeper, deeper love for
mm.
the personality, for the self, for the
Right.
human, for the human.
Yes. Thank you, because I'm getting what you're saying when you're saying the container. First, it's like, oh yeah, why isn't the container big? And then if I drop in, it's like, well, it's all those things in the way, all those things that about who we think we are and our history and our likes and dislikes. That's what contains the container. That's the limits on the expansion. And I think working through that and maybe the process you just went through is another disconnect, even though you said in the dark room that you just did for 3 days, you became more solidified, but more of an observer, I heard, of the groundedness of of Larisa. Does that make sense? Or maybe
Um,
it's not.
well, it's interesting, Alan.
Mm.
being in the darkness, which was really important for me, like I just knew I had to do it. And I shared with you, I thought that I was going to be really taken by my Kundalini in the darkness. Um, but instead, what happened is that it was Larisa. It was my personality, my quirkiness that I am in this infinite, unrelenting hum of eternity. And I had to love Larisa. There was no escape from Larisa. Like even Kundalini is an escape in a sense from
Right.
personality because you go into oneness, right? So there's this, and you go into multidimensionality, which has so much love and so much ecstasy. But in the darkness, I was Larisa. I was
But when you say I had to love Larisa, who is the I that had to? I mean, that's the part. That's the switch around. The I-ness that loves the beingness, right?
Well, it's interesting. It's very interesting because it's actually what I experienced was feeling the lover and the beloved within myself. And not in
Mm.
the sense of being in multidimensionality as a Shiva and the Shakti, but feeling compassion
Hmm.
for self. It becomes hard to say what comes first or what really is the I that is loving. Like what is
Yeah.
the I that is loving myself? But it truly felt like, okay, Larisa, okay, let me give you an example. This will help, I think. When I was in the darkness, I was very much confronted on the second day, and I wanted to be confronted, mind you. I wanted to have something to work with because there's not a lot to work with other than the eternal hum of the infinite in the
Well, how
darkness.
do you even know it was the second day? I mean, I guess they feed you or something, right? I mean,
Yeah,
how do you know?
Scott, my guide, my host, came at
Uh-huh.
7 o'clock every day to feed me. So he would be
Only
like,
one meal a day? Just that? Is that all you're eating in the darkness? One meal?
he brought so much food that I could not even eat it all. So I had food to eat as much as I want. You know, I had eggs for the next day, for the morning. I had smoothie, I had soup. It was more food that I could eat in the darkness. Um,
I want to do that process, but we'll talk about that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay. So
incredible. It's
then
incredible.
on the second day, what happened to you? And then we'll get back to Kundalini, but what happened then?
Well, it's all related to. It's absolutely related. On the second day, I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to see what was beneath the hood in my unconscious, so to speak, because at this point I'm like, I'm here forever. If and literally one day felt like 3 days. So I wanted to do work on myself. And it was, if you can imagine, like, you go, this is how I think of it. It's like when you go to a family event, there's always that one family member who's a little more negative than everybody else, who's like complaining about everything that's going on in their life and everybody else's life, and we tend to go like, I'm gonna steer clear of this one over there. I'm gonna spend more time over here.
Mhm.
Well, in the darkness, you have no one other than yourself. So all of a sudden, that one relative that is more pessimistic, a little more negative, becomes much more interesting. And I realized that I needed to make friends with this aspect of myself because that relative is really related to myself. So I invited in the voices, the limiting beliefs, looking at my patterns, at myself. I'm like, let's do some work because I'm in eternity. Let's work on self here. I need something to work with here. and and as I looked at these limiting thoughts of myself, I did the work with me that I do with my clients, which is whenever there's limiting beliefs, whenever there's limiting patterns, rather than trying to get rid of them or disassociate from them, numb them out, we bring them into the room and we work with them and have compassion for them. So we say to them, it's okay that you feel, and we start to speak to them. So I spoke to the parts of myself that are not the strongest, the smartest, the most beautiful, the most talented. These parts of myself that in the past I haven't been very kind to. It's like, why can't you be smarter? I've been really hard on myself in the past. Like, as an example, I'll be talking to you, and there'll be a word I'm looking for, and I won't be able to find it when I want it. It's in my file cabinet. I know the exact word I want, but it just isn't there. It's not accessible when I want it. And I will get so frustrated with myself, like, oh, if only I was smarter, I would be able to access that, and I will beat myself up in the past. And when I was in the darkness, it was like, it's okay. It's okay that you're not the smartest. It's okay.
Well, I wouldn't even, you could put it that, I mean, yes, that's your process, but I would say, is it about being smart or is it about being judgmental about the little things we have about ourselves? Because, of course, you are smart and you are in touch. So it's the labels more and then the judgments we put ourselves on ourselves because of these labels. And then you came to a place of acceptance. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but that's a thing. That's a thing. When we go, but we're not, but I am smart. The thing is to face it head on. Is if there is a limiting belief that exists within, there is a judgment. So rather than even judging the judge or trying to even do the work with Byron Katie of like, is that true? And trying to poke holes in it, blow holes in it. Instead, it's like, well, what if it is true? What if it is true that you're not the smartest? What if it is true that you're not the strongest? Like allowing that to be okay, even if it's the truth. It's like, can you be okay with not being those things? Now, if I can be okay with it rather than trying to show how it's not true, then there's a whole other level of acceptance and unconditional love that starts to spring forth.
Right.
So,
Thank you. I get it. I get it. And thank you, yeah, for that processing here about my own judgments. Where am I judging myself? And so that was one level. But if we go back to the Kundalini experience, and which was the kind of the first awareness of awareness, maybe. I mean, you're always kind of a spiritually awakened person, but another level comes in when the energy starts to rise. Talk about your process of coming to terms. And the big part I really would love to hear you talk about is that merging with the divine feminine, the that activation, how that comes to you. But go ahead, just take a
okay,
couple
so
of
I
them.
know this is a paradox, Ellen.
Okay.
Um, and the paradox is this, and this is why I go back to the human, okay? And why I keep drawing us back to the human. Yes, the experience of merging into the divine feminine is so powerful, and that's it with my Kundalini. That's where I go. The Dakini sky dancer, Shakti herself, like literally becoming Shakti. But here's the paradox and the divine paradox. The reason why I took us into the human and the importance of really getting underneath the hood of loving the self, loving the human, is because Divine Mother, Divine Father unconditionally loves the human.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah.
true path of integration and the true path of liberation doesn't necessarily come from merging even with the Godhead. It
Mm-hmm.
actually, the path of liberation is is merging with the Godhead, but the Godhead that loves the human.
Mm-hmm.
So that in the love of the human, we fully integrate the experience of the Kundalini. That's what's happening to me right now. Is
Mm-hmm.
that is that my Kundalini, which has been so expansive and so cosmic and so multidimensional, is integrating, which has been my dream, my absolute like dream is the integration of this intense, beautiful, ecstatic love of the divine, which comes and goes. When I go into that oneness, I'm there. When I came back into Larisa, it's like, oh man, boy, it's hard to be Larisa compared to being Divine Mother, right? Divine Mother
Right.
is way more enjoyable than being Larisa. So the the deepest teaching is truly the integration of Divine Mother. As she loves Larisa, I get to love Larisa. As
Mm-hmm.
you, as the Divine Ma, Divine Father loves Alan, you get to love Alan. Your job is really to love the fuck out of Alan. It's just like, just to love Alan, just to be so grateful for your channel that brought you here to expand consciousness as you, as the
Mm-hmm.
personality you were given in this lifetime, and to give deep gratitude for this vehicle that we call Alan in this lifetime, because this is, without Alan,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be growing and expanding consciousness. Consciousness does not grow
Mm-hmm.
without Alan.
Right. I get that, and that's what you're transmitting to me now, really, because you are smart and wise because of your experience. Wisdom comes from experience and looking at the experience and integrating it. So what I get from what you're saying is the next level of integration. Like everyone wants to be the divine essence, the divine masculine, feminine, whatever. And it's easy to be that, or it's easier because it's an escape. And then you're saying the divine essence is here to be us, to be embodied as us, not in
Yes,
us, but as as us. And then
yes,
the, and I see as I contemplate that the personality comes up against the wall of how can I be that as this, as me, and be that also? Because I think you've had more experience in that than me, and then maybe other people, because you've been challenged in your lifetime in ways that a lot of people haven't. And you've learned to kind of maneuver inside the psyche of a kind of spiritual awareness that allows your process to unfold as the path of your own discovery, as the path of integrating the physical process with all the perceptual awarenesses. You
yes.
know,
I've had to. Yes, it's like it's
that's okay.
become necessary if I'm going to stay in my body.
Right. And you
It's
had
been a
to integrate
necessity
the
for me.
body part, though. You've been
Yeah.
challenged bodily with that,
Yes.
that piece. So, yeah, and you could escape through the divine feminine and say, wow, isn't this blissful? But then you'd leave this piece behind. And I think the true ascension, it used to be quite a catchphrase, the ascension, but people aren't talking about it as much because they realize it's actually harder than just, okay, I'm here, I'm turning my body into light. It's the process of what you're doing and what you're leading a path that others can do in
Yeah.
their way.
It's a real, that's the thing, Alan, that is amazing about this path is that it's tangible. It is something that we can actually do rather than, you know, it's, I know this is, really challenging people's belief systems, but like, in Buddhism, we're taught to to rise above the human, to see, this is where I'm going trying to find my words.
No, no,
I'm
that,
trying, you
no,
know what I'm
no,
saying?
because I'm with you
It's
because
okay.
there is no words, though. There are no words for the language we're trying to convey. So it's not like you're trying to find the word. We are creating a dialogue that even Buddhism, I think you were saying,
It's
doesn't
limited.
put it, it is limited and it
It's
doesn't
limited.
put it in the perspective because my judgment, it's just a judgment, is Buddhism is also an escape. But the Buddhist practices, it's escape from the personality that you've been stuck in 3 days in the dark room with. Not stuck, but but because it's easy to become other, but to become Larisa or me and all the stuff we've accumulated and integrate that as divine somehow, that's the part that I don't think Buddhism includes.
It doesn't, nor does Christianity, nor does Tibetan Buddhism, nor does, like,
Well,
if you, it it doesn't. It's like
well, there's
this
no
is the,
religion that does include it because religion was the escape from the personality. It's like the seva, which is great, service, and but I think what you're talking about and what I'm feeling is like the next level of spiritual awakening, if I can proclaim that,
yes,
is to include the us that we are and
yes,
that. And I think Jungian
absolutely.
psychology, depth psychology, and because incarnation, right, is the path of taking that personality and moving it through that process of interactions to transcendence, but as personality, sort of. But
Yes,
of
it's
course,
like,
transcend the personality. Yes, there's no words, but yes,
and
right.
Kundalini, yes, you exactly, you got it. And Kundalini is the activator of the the unconscious actually. What Kundalini does is it begins to stir the unconscious
Mm.
so that it begins to rise on up so that you can see the unconscious more clearly. It actually it brings all the wounding that perhaps was pushed away and all the parts of personality that have been disowned to a certain degree. It brings that up with compassion and it wants to be seen and met. So
Right.
it's the beginning of the awakening. Kundalini is that next level of puberty, of merging with God consciousness. But in merging with God consciousness, then we are being asked to be that God which loves the human, which loves life, which
Mm.
actually God wants to embody. That's why we are embodied, is because
Yes.
God, that which we are, is like, let's do this extreme sport thing called life.
Yeah.
Let's dive into form to grow consciousness. And
Yeah.
so it wants to embody. It's not like let me get out of here, get back into oneness. We already are that. So it's more that it wants to come down, it wants to completely embody. Once it's embodied, then we're in the fullness of who we are. Like I'm in the fullness of Larisa, you're in the fullness of Alan. And there's this love, this just this love of life, this love of this process of humanity, of getting to be human right now, and then we rise. But you got to go down before you go up. You got to root before you bloom.
One of the great things, though, from what I know of you, your process is, and I've been writing about art and creativity, is there's that when we're in that creative mode, the transcendence happens in the human. It is that divine inspiration in spirit that uses the personality to access the creation, the create as creator. And so that's a practice that is emerging in some sense of the divine impersonality because it's Kundalini energy that activates the creative awareness.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But get back a little. I'd like to see you smile. Thank you. The part where the divine feminine, the divine goddess, the mother, came to you, because I mean, I think I heard that right in one of your interviews.
Yeah.
That's what's so fascinating, because I think, and just my theory is that those beings are us, or we are that, and this is like who these personalities, me and you, are branches on the tree that is the divine emanations of those greater beings. And they're not archetypes, because that makes it psychological. They are emanations of creation that we're an aspect of. So I'm always curious when people have these awakenings from the branch to the trunk of the tree, like, oh, that's it. And then that reflection spurs more growth somehow, more of a emerging. So I'm just curious what happened to you.
I've had many visitations, but it's another paradox, because as Larisa, I've had these visitations from Divine Mother who've given me, like, when she's come, and Gaia too, not just Divine Mother, but Gaia, which is a different frequency of the Ma. Um, I've been given these incredible awarenesses that I didn't have before. Like the Weevolution, is one of the big pieces that came, that there is no
I love
more,
that revolution.
you know, there's no more evolving without wevolving. There's no more evolution without weevolution. That was Divine Mother. But here's the paradox. With Kundalini Awakening, you also become Divine Mother, or you become Divine Father, the
Yes.
Divine Masculine. You experience it completely as self. You are it. So I have had these visitations which feel like outside in, when I am in a state of Larisa, in the not knowing, in needing help, and needing a breakthrough in my awareness, so to speak, and I'm not in that unified field of oneness. Then I've had experiences of Divine Mother come to me. But is Divine Mother really separate? Is she really on the outside of me? Or am I just, because I'm so in Larisa and in the smallness of myself, am I perceiving her as being outside in, rather than inside out?
Well, talk though a little bit as Larisa, how she came to you. Like, what was that? What was the circumstances of, like, maybe the first time that you had this, or something? Just to give a concrete example before we get too abstract of what the process was. I'm curious, if you don't mind. I mean, if you
Sure.
want.
Well, I'd been really sick. I didn't know that I um, had C. diff. I'd had all these physical breakdowns, from an ovarian torsion, blood transfusions, and then continuing to get worse and worse, being in the hospital, them not knowing to begin with what was really wrong with me, because my ovarian torsion was taken care of. I had blood now from the transfusions. Why is she still declining? And when I was in the hospital, before I knew that I had C. diff. And Divine Mother came to me. She didn't tell me I had C. diff, but she said I had a lot of work to do on myself.
But how
Um,
did she come to you? Did she physically appear? Or
no,
what?
it was a field, a huge vibrational field of love. Like the vibration went from kind of a field of desperation and
Mhm.
feeling so sick. I'm like going to the bathroom every 20 minutes, not being able to keep in food, being told that I have sepsis, that my organs are shutting down. I think I'm dying, right? Um, and then this field of energy, so beautiful, so expansive. In that field of energy, it just started to come into the hospital room, just, and I was elevated in this field of love. And it was obvious that Divine Mother was, her presence was there because I started being given information from her. It's like I could hear her inside out talking to me and sharing with me the work to be done that I had to do.
But how'd you know it was Divine Mother? Did someone tell you? I mean, how did you get that key?
How do you know you're having an orgasm?
Okay.
It's the same kind of thing. It's like there's no way that you don't know.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So she came and started to help you in this illness and actually help energetically uplift something by changing your psyche as well, right?
And showing me the responsibility that I had,
Mm.
to shift my relationship with myself and with life.
Mm.
So um, that's when she started teaching me about receiving, like receiving that I hadn't, that my feedback loop, so to speak, that energy was going out, but I wasn't allowing myself to receive at that
Right.
time in my life, from others, at the depth that would heal me, would
Mhm.
that would create a healing. So she was giving me awareness of myself, and it was very humbling. That's how I knew it was Divine Mother. It's like I'm like being humbled to this knowledge, that I'm receiving from her. And after she came to me, I didn't need to go to the bathroom. Like that stopped, whereas I'd had to go every 20 minutes and I was in a lot of pain. It'd just be like running with the bathroom as fast as I could with all my IVs and everything. And it stopped. And the very next day, I was released. When they had thought that I had sepsis, I was released from the hospital because I had no more outward expression of dis-ease. So I was released on Good Friday.
Mhm.
Um,
That
but
was a
then I
divine
was,
intervention. That was what you were
huh?
going to say? I
But
sang a
then,
divine, yeah,
go ahead. You
intervention.
go ahead.
I was just saying it was a divine intervention. But then what happened? You released on Good Friday, and then
And then on Easter, my little one, my kiddo, accidentally hit me with her elbow. She was so excited to see me and hopped in the bed and hit me in the stomach. And that activated the dis-ease again, because even though it had completely calmed down, I still had C. diff. I didn't know it, right? So I still had C. diff. It had completely just acted like it was gone until Easter. And then on Easter, that's when I had Mama Gaia came to me, huge, and I was sent back to the hospital. And then in the hospital, that's when Divine Mother came again. So I had like three Divine Mother experiences, but one was Mama Gaia of the three. And the third time in the hospital is when she came and she said, because I'm like, what do I do now? I'm sick again. And she said, how do I evolve? I'm not evolving fast enough. And she said, no, 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 no. There is no evolving. It's we evolving. And
mm, And you start the we revolution with that in that moment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
did that change also that your physical sense, did that change for you? The essence, the vibration?
Yes, it did. And I got better and better after that. I got That's when the healing really started to happen, is after that visitation. And the doctor said you have C. diff, so they finally discovered that and started taking care of the physical piece, and I
Right.
started getting stronger
But
physically.
your process now with everything you've been through and your great music, I wish we had time for you to play something, but we'll do that maybe on the Kundalini Awakening show that we're doing tomorrow. If you're watching Portal to Ascension, Larisa will be one of the panelist speakers on the Kundalini, I guess we're calling it forum. But everything that you've been through in this last thing with the dark room, where are you going? I mean, I mean, not that you're actually willing it's happening to you, but where is it leading? Are you just looking for the next process, the next moment? Are you sitting in the contentment of yourself and allowing it to unfold? I mean, it seems like that. But is there something you're here to do? Do you see, I'm just seeing how do you see it unfolding? And maybe, of course, we don't know, but where are you at now?
I am, like you said, it is an unfolding. It's a continual. I could let me see. Is it around here? Yes. Let me read you something
Okay, please.
that I wrote,
Because
and it.
I very much appreciate what you're saying because you're sharing a deep process that I think a lot of us go through on some level. So, yes.
This kind of says it. I haven't refined it, so this is
That's okay.
in more raw state, but this kind of says it. What you're asking. I am in an awesome state of becoming. To be in the becoming state is to be in blooming. It is not a destination. It is perpetually in the state of arriving, which is infinitely unfolding and growing, more ecstatic and less likely to calcify. It is an internal, humbled state of consciousness. So you can experience consciousness anew and ever growing. It is the crest of the now wave.
Hmm. I get it. I mean, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for your hard work. It's been a lot of intense focus to get you to that place, I would say. I mean, and to get
Yes,
us
it
all.
has. Yes, it has, Helen. It's a lot of intense focus and continues to be. I'm still working with all this physical stuff, and to
But
be
what
able.
else would you be doing, right? What else? It's sort of what you're dedicated your work to. And of course, creating amazing music. How can people find your amazing? It comes from that same level that you're talking here, that music, you know, that I love about what you're doing. Where do we find that music?
Well, my favorite place for you to find my music is on our website, which is larisastow.com, LARISASTOW.com. And you can listen to music there, you can buy music there, but that's for us, just to come into our little ecosystem, to say hello and look around. Would love that for people. And of course, we're everywhere. The music is on all platforms, but these days, just as a awareness for the world, we are not making the same kind of money we used to doing our music because we don't sell CDs like we did, because people now have Spotify and iTunes, And
Right.
artists like myself, we're not paid very much anymore. Um, Very fraction of. So now it's like a new model. Like now we have a patron system. I have patrons through patreon.com that help to fuel and help us to continue to make music. So would love for people to come visit.
Just give us that, because then we should wrap up, because I have this thing I have to do. But I love talking to you because I feel you. I feel your process, and I think you are transmitting the feeling essence of what you've been through. How does music fit into the incarnational awakening of everything we've been about?
I love music because it is transmission. It's like pure transmission music. It just is. So when I'm working with music and when I was in the darkness, all these melodies came to me in the darkness so that I could work with the teachings that I was learning inside out from being there and put them immediately into melodies and then sing them back to myself so that they would integrate
Mm.
at a deeper level, which I like to call cellular receivership, that the cells of my body are literally receiving these teachings. So it's not just in my head, it's in my body. It's becoming embodied so that I can bloom even more with those frequencies.
Could you give us a little frequency that just came through? Just like a short little, if you feel like anything, or not. That's
Well,
fine.
I mean, like I sang to myself again and again. I was singing, "It's okay that I'm not smart enough. And I'm no, actually, it's okay that I'm not the smartest, that I'm not the strongest, that I'm not most beautiful. It comes and goes like the river that flows through the infinite. I am the infinite, the many faces of the infinite." And I just kept repeating that again and again to myself. But
Mm. Beautiful.
and
You
that
are the
was
many faces. That was what you were saying, that was.
that was my way of coming to a place of peace
Mm.
with these aspects of myself, these places that I hold, that it's okay. And then I had another piece that came through that was even more delightful after that, after I'd worked with that and I'd worked with that and I worked with that. And the next piece that came was I'm like right now like trying to draw upon the melody. It's kind of all a little bit
That's
there,
okay.
but the words are, "I'm smart enough to keep on growing. I'm strong enough to face my fears head on. I rise when I could fall. I'm most beautiful of all when I'm loving you."
Mm. Beautiful. And you know what? You are the face of the infinite, just like everyone is the face of
Yeah.
the infinite. I mean, you have to look, when we look in the mirror, we can say, I'm looking at the face of the infinite. That's a little harder. It's easy to say it to you than to say it to myself. But that's all the self love. That's the work. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a great Zikr song too, to do with each other, to sing back to each other. You
Yes,
are,
that's what I was seeing. I was feeling that. And these other little melodies that came to me too about the lover and the beloved within myself. Like simple melodies, just super simple that I sing to myself, that I can share with others, that we can sing together, that we can deepen in this knowledge so that it keeps circulating like a prayer wheel,
mm,
that it just
yeah.
goes deeper and deeper into the cells of who we are as like a prayer wheel.
Mm. Well, maybe tomorrow you could share some of that, because the only reason we're talking about Kundalini tomorrow on this Kundalini forum is to realize the infinite in us. It
Yeah.
is source energy that activates life force and greater awakening. And there's one woman who's coming on tomorrow, Sandra Walters, who writes poetry from that place. But this is the awakening of the Weevolution. There's a friend of mine who has an organization called the I that is we, something like that. But I also say the we has to become I, the
Yes.
bigger I. So
Yes. That's
we
right.
can be two, but when we are one, the I includes all that we are.
Yes. Thank you.
The
Thank you.
evolution, I call it.
Yes.
Out of the Weevolution.
It's the it is the me within the we and the we within the me.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Well,
they're like that.
hmm, yeah. Well, it's an exciting journey you're on because you're able to reflect it. You're able to talk about it the best way you can. I mean, there's no words sometimes, but I think it helps me, but it helps a lot of people we all have to do the deep journey, so it helps all of us.
Yes.
So thank
Thank
you, Larissa.
you.
So I'm going to just show that page one more time of the Kundalini um, forum. And you're doing something else tomorrow too, is that right? You're on
I
another.
am. I am doing a goddess. It's like the galactic goddess panel circle. Um, Karen
At,
Swain
right, right.
and
At
Sheila, and you know Sheila. Sheila, what's Sheila's last name?
Sheila Seppi, she's a good friend of
Sheila
mine.
Seppi. Yes. So
Rock
they're they're spearheading this beautiful gathering of women that are looking at together. We're having a conversation about why now is such an important time on the planet and what we can do to really um, help consciousness at this time. What the
And that's
future.
happening the same time the Kundalini forum's happening, right?
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that until I'm obviously doing this with you all. So
Right. So that is at Portal to Ascension tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific. You do have to register. I think we'll do a panel though after maybe for free, but it is some of my favorite Kundalini Shakti people. Val, Anastasia, Neil, Kai. Do you know Kai? Have you talked to Kai Shanti?
I have not.
Oh, you'll enjoy her. And you know Barbara Hand Clow's work, right?
You know, I have heard of Barbara, but I don't know her work. Like I'm not like really familiar with her work.
She is fantastic. She is the great wise woman of this awakening. So is Sandra Walters if she can make it there. But and thank you because you are the wise woman here for
Thank
sharing
you.
your I mean you're so it's but your gift is that it's so easy for you to talk about your life and your experience. It's not that easy. Well, it's not that easy for me, but it's not that easy and you've by sharing it, it makes it easier for other people to say, okay, this is my process. This is what I've had to confront. This is my self judgment. And and we're all in that process of looking at those parts of ourselves.
I think that's the whole thing right now. It's becoming more transparent
Right.
because we all have it, even the greatest teachers. Because, honey, I know and have worked with and have met the most enlightened people.
Mhm.
And what usually happens is that humanity is not really seen. It's kind of pushed to the side, and that the more of the enlightened aspect is forward and the less of the human is forward. And they're just as human as everyone else because I happen to know people on a very personal level. And it's like just as human. and we all need to be more honest about our humanity so that we can all grow together. We're going to grow exponentially faster the more we're honest about our stuff.
Right.
It's our human stuff that actually makes us more accessible.
And more divine in a kind of a paradoxical way, because we know ourselves as divine in form, in limitation. So we look at the limits, and it's the limits exist because the divine knows those limits. If that makes
Yes,
sense. You
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know who was a great expresser of that was Ram Dass. Ram Dass would always he'd be able to really articulate his own limitations as a human being.
Yes, and
So
we love that about Ram Dass. We appreciate that about Ram Dass and his
right,
vulnerability. That's what makes him so lovable.
right. I asked him once, and then we'll go because I asked him, "How's this incarnation been for you?" And he says it's been really good. It was here, but it could have been there. And so he said it was, and I said, well, it's a great one all around for me and you, and thank you. And I think as we have these conversations and both the things you're doing tomorrow, it pushes the collective
Yeah.
into new awarenesses of who we are as the unknown is one way I can say that.
Yes. That's what it's
Thank you,
all
Larissa.
about.
I hope to see you at the Disclosure Fest. I'll give you a copy of my book and see
Yes. I
Larissa Stowe.
hope to see you too. I'll look for where you're presenting
Right.
and you can look where I'm presenting
I
so we can
will.
come see each other, okay?
Definitely, definitely. Thanks for your time. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll do a little introduction for you and we'll just keep playing in the
Okay.
divine.
Love it.
Thanks so
Love
much.
it. Love
Thanks for
you.
your time. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
Much love, sweetheart.
Love to you. See you. Thank you all for watching. Alan Steinfeld for New Realities, and stay tuned for more, whatever this is.
Yes.